This is part 2 of the 21st century. Last week I had spoken about a couple of the ideas. There was a whole introduction, but fundamentally the bottom line of all this is that the Satan is dying because after 4,000 years the Jews, whether it be through mitzvahs, tshuva, or yisurin, mitzvahs, tshuva, repentance, or yisurin, suffering, have taken back, I would imagine, 98% of all the kedusha, all the energy, the power that they had given the Satan. They have taken it back. So obviously, since the Satan needs that to survive, and he doesn't have it, he's dying. This is really the core of what's happening now. And so this is the fundamental concept, that he's desperate. And desperate angels do desperate things, as they say. They cease to be angelic, not that he ever was, but they cease to be angelic and they just resort to real mafia tactics, as you can call that, But in any case, and I had mentioned that there are different strategies. Essentially, the main strategy, I had mentioned that there are 3 strategies, and that the first strategy is called the big bluff. This is a repeat, and which means that you throw everything at the enemy, hoping that he will sue for peace, because he can't believe that you still have all this stuff left. That doesn't work. Then the second strategy is you send your dissidents into the enemy territory to try to break the resolve of the enemy nation to continue the war. And the third thing that this general would do, and this is the example, is he has to get an ally, because he's run out of ammunition. And he has to, of course, get new ammunition, new firepower, and so on. And I had mentioned last week that this basically is what's happening, is that the Satan is dying, and he's employing the same strategy or tactics as a general would do. So the first tactic, as I mentioned, corresponds to the Holocaust. And his idea, in terms of the Holocaust, he doesn't get anything out of the death of a Jew, but what he was hoping was to destroy the emunah of Klal Yisrael, the faith, the belief of Klal Yisrael. They would just give up and say, how could this be? And God has abandoned us, and therefore we can just, forget about the agreement, the covenant, and do what we want. And of course, then that would have meant that the Jews would sin, and he would then again take from the kedusha of a Jew what the Jew should have gotten had he not sinned. The Satan would be able to take that. So the Holocaust corresponds to the big bluff. The second thing was that didn't work. I mentioned this last week, right? The second thing was I'd mentioned is he sends his guys, his dissidents, to break the resolve of the enemy to fight. Who was that? The Erev Rav. I mentioned. I want to include the Erev Rav is, right? I want the whole thing. Who the Erev Rav and so on. In the end, the Erev Rav is really the main foot soldiers of the Satan. He's got the Umas Ha'olam, which is the nations of the world, which he tries, of course, to get them to destroy Jews, kill Jews. And the second thing is the Erev Rav. And I mentioned who the Erev Rav is and so on, what their fundamental theme is, to destroy Judaism, not Jews, but to destroy the entire uniqueness of Klal Yisrael as a nation of Torah. That's fundamentally what they are. And the historical event that corresponds to that is 1948, is the State of Israel, which of course all the Maskilim, the Mapai, Labour, all these political parties, of course, did terrible things to the Jews of Eretz Israel to destroy their religion. And then you have the Reform, the Conservative, and Reconstructionists in the United States. These are the Erev Rav. And he was hoping that his guys, I mentioned that they are like a tumor because they have incredible credibility. They have credibility that they're Jews, so no Jew will suspect them of trying to destroy them themselves and so on. So you have the concept of an Erev Rav. In any case, this was the second thing. I'm just reviewing what I said last week. And the third thing, of course, was not the dissidents, but the ally. And I mentioned that the only ally is Yeshua. He's the only nation that can draw down the Kedusha, independent of the Sultan. And I mentioned, what the consequences are of that and so on, why they're called Yishmael and why they're not interested in missionizing, because they don't need to get a Jew to sin. They can just take down their own. In any case, that's where we stood last week. I think very important ideas, obviously. But the crux of the matter, obviously, is that the Sultan's dying. This is where it's all at. So, that was last week, and now we go on further.
Can I ask a quick question about Ishmael?
Ishmael,
yeah. So they can draw it directly because they're doing something right. It's a sort of a mitzvah they're doing. As far as we're concerned, they're doing terrible things, much worse than all other guys.
Well, they do.
By that, how do they draw anything?
Well, there's certain things that they do which is righteous. One of them is they say they believe in one God. Yeah, we mentioned that.
Even though this belief, practically speaking, it's totally gone. I mean, it's just what they're doing. It's subhuman what they're doing.
Islam is not an Avodah Zarah. They have no statues or idols in their mosque at all. They do not believe in that. They shun that from Christianity. The whole Christianity is a pagan. They believe in one God. I mean, whatever that means, and so on. Whatever they call him, Allah, and so on.
Mecca's not a Getchka.
What? Who?
Mecca, the big black rock.
No, that's not a god. That's a place that the Kaaba.
That he went up.
Yeah, that Muhammad went up in the night journey, the night ride, whatever they call it, on his horse.
In their values.
And he went up there to receive the Torah from Gabriel, is what they believe, and so on. But they also believe that Yishmael is the one who had the Akedah, not today's the pastor of the Akedah.
Are they crazy?
Well,
Don't prove it.
They changed it. They believe that the Torah distorted it. That really it was Yishmael that was offered up, not Yitzchak. And we lied. We took all the credit, and so on. And that's what they believe. Listen,
Besides for the fact Ishmael believes in false IDs and
false who?
IDs.
Meaning who?
Their ideas.
Ideas, yeah.
Yes. Number one. Number two, the fact that they're against Yidden. The rest of their values, are they close to our values, or everything is?
Well, that's what I'm mentioning. Some of the atheists. The first thing, they're monotheistic. They believe in one God. Second thing is they practice bris milah. Whether they do the complete thing or not, I'm just saying, but they do practice the concept of a bris. Yeah, the Zohar says that they have a schus of bris milah. The third thing is that they pray 5 times a day. They pray to God, and so on. They're not atheists. They pray 5 times a day to Mecca.
You got sneeze?
Sneeze.
A fourth thing is sneeze. Just you can make comments on that, but in the end, their women are, basically they're tzinuim. They are modestly dressed, and I would say it's overkill and so on, But there is an Indian of sneeze of these people. Then there is a concept called Shema, the belief, where they have to say, that they believe in Allah, whatever, and God, and Muhammad is his prophet, and so on. You see, Yishmael did not distort the deity. They distorted the prophecy, where they held Muhammad is the greatest of all the prophets and the last of all the prophets. This is what they hold, and therefore Christianity destroyed or distorted the God, where they say it's not one, it's 3. That's a distortion of God himself and so on. Of course it was democratic because they voted on it at the Council of Nicaea in 325 CE, because there was a lot of schisms in Christianity, a lot of them and so on, There were people who held that Yeshu is the Messiah, he's not God. Those are Unitarians, and then there's guys that held that there are many gods, Yeshu being among them. There were a tremendous amount. The original Christianity had a tremendous amount of conflicting opinions about who this guy was. And finally, Constantine said, "Hey, this is ridiculous," So he called together a famous meeting called the Council of Nicaea, and they voted on the basic theocracy You know, so they voted that he is God, and you know he's part of the Trinity. And you know, listen, democracy started a long time ago. Yeah, Nimnu V'Gamru, yeah. You know, we vote that this Taka, he is God, yeah. You know. The problem is they never got it straight, so they have a Trinity instead of a unity. But there is a Christian sect that holds that Yeshu is not God, that he's only the Messiah, and so on. It's all kinds of shittas. It's a whole study in itself, what the original Christians held. But anyway, getting back to Yishmael, see, what's interesting to think about is that what's the difference between Yishmael as a usurper of Judaism, right, and Christianity as a usurper of Judaism? Because they're both religions, right, that recognize Judaism, right, but they try to supplant Judaism and say that their religion is the correct version, and for whatever, you know, either God decided to switch out, he switched to them, or Muhammad is the greatest of the prophets, whatever they decided, and so on, because basically Christianity is a competitor. You know, if you want to put somebody out of business, you have one of two ways. You can compete. If somebody's got a shoe store on a block and you want to put them out of business, right? What do? You open up another shoe store on the same block, and you try to put out sales, you know, the ways of getting people to shop at your store. So eventually the other guy closes down. This goes on all the time. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is going into the guy's store and buying him out. Don't open another store, just buy him out. That's all. That's the difference. Christianity is a competitor. They open up another store on the block. You see, Islam is a buyout. You know, they just come into the store and they want to buy you out, and so on. Either way, both claim to be the heir of Judaism in that sense, you know, and you know, and so on. So these two religions, you know, make that claim that they are the rightful heirs of Judaism for whatever reason, and so on, you know. So this is so far what's happening is that the main thrust of the Sultan now is to make a deal, as I mentioned, with Yishmael. And I think I mentioned last week that what the deal was. I mentioned that. About he went to the Malach, you know, what the discussion was. I mentioned that.
Briefly.
Okay, so I mean, obviously, what the Malach said was, "Hey, no problem. We'll do your bidding. Try to destroy the Jews or whatever, and so on. You know, get them to sin, whatever. But here on one condition. Until now, Edom was your Bechor, right? Esav, who was Edom, who was Rome, was Western civilization. Christianity was Western civilization. These guys are your Bechor, right? We want to take them over. We want to be the Bechor. We want to be the nation, the greatest nation in the world."
Why does he need it? What's the objective? Why does he need it?
Who?
The Malach. The
No,
Malach
Yishmael's doing it.
Yishmael.
Right. But the Malach Yishmael, why does he need it?
You know,
What's the point?
Hey,
to be the greatest nation in the world means to completely dominate and to put forth your religion, because you're the greatest nation. First of all, it means to be wealthy, right? It means to lead everybody. Everybody wants power.
but that was
You know?
how Yishmael's Malach was created. He says that was the Nevuah, Tahoga, that he was going to be Yodeh Al Kol. So that's what his Metzias was. He wants that. He needs that.
Yeah, that's really where it started from, Yishmael, and you know, and so on.
Is this an illustration?
Everybody's against him, and he's against everybody else, which is mamish what it is. I mean, they vie with each other, and so on, you know. But in any case, that was the deal, and that's all of a sudden why you see in 1989 it all started. You see, they're taking over Europe, England. I just heard on the radio today that they discovered a whole nest of terrorists that wanted in England and so on.
Yeah, England has the biggest basis for ISIS.
Yeah, the guys are thousands of guys leaving to go to ISIS from England, from Europe. It's amazing what's happening and so on. But we'll get to ISIS. But anyway, so they are taking over London. They're renaming it London. They're renaming it to Londonistan. you know. And Europe is no longer called Europe; it's called Eurabia. You know. And Europe is also finished. Think about it. Take a look. 1 out of every 3 births in France is a Muslim. It's incredible. And there are already about 10, 15 million Muslims in France. And they say in 20 years the majority of France will be Muslim. Can you believe this? And of course the problem is, 2 things will result ultimately, which we'll speak about. The first thing is that all politicians will now do the bidding of the Muslims because they want their vote. This is the problem. You know, even though they kill Jews or whatever they do there, but since the politicians want their vote, listen, they're going to vote for the Muslims. You know, and so on. I mean, they're going to do things that the Muslims want, even though they're not going to protect the Jews. It's the end. Let's put this. So you have England, you have France, you have Belgium, which is terrible. You have Spain. Do you know that Catholic Spain is one of the essential Catholic nations. You know, it always was. You know what I'm saying? In fact, the expulsion was basically all Jews had to convert to Catholicism. A lot of the churches of Spain are being converted to mosques. Unbelievable. This Catholic Spain, you know. So you have that, and you have, what I said, Holland. You have Italy. You have a lot of the main nations are slowly being taken over by the Muslims. And the problem is that there's 2 billion Christians. 1 billion is Protestants, and the other billion is Roman Catholics. Those are the 2 major denominations. But there's 1.4 billion Muslims. What do you think is going to happen when there will be 2 billion Muslims? It's only a matter of time. Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, which is interesting. And Europe, they are abandoning the churches in droves. The only one, as I mentioned, the only one who goes to church these days are tourists, because they want to see the beautiful stained glass windows and the magnificent architecture of a church, Gothic architecture and so on, But in any case, so therefore Christianity is dying in Europe, which was really the seat of Christianity, right? And Islam is growing. So what's going to happen ultimately, when France becomes half Islam? Now, what's interesting about Islam, they're not interested in culture. The first thing they're going to try to do is burn down the Louvre. First thing. What?
Burn down the
Louvre.
The Louvre.
The Louvre. That's one of the greatest museums in the world. You have that in St. Petersburg. You have the what do you call that place? The Hermitage. Yeah, there are certain museums, the Smithsonian and Washington. There's greatest museums in the world. And the Louvre has paintings by all the French painters. I mean, they're going to burn it down because a lot of those paintings are naked people, statues. It's in the Islam. They couldn't care less about culture. So ultimately, all of this is going to generate a massive clash of civilizations, because they're going to realize that their day is over.
They're starting.
Unless they
People are
stop
starting
it.
to protest. The Europeans are starting to protest.
Yeah. In fact, that's why.
The Nazi movement coming,
Well, what will happen is always then everybody turns to the right, and then besides Muslims that you go after Jews too.
Right.
It's always that's where whenever the country goes crazy with right, you need to get out all the foreigners, Jews, Muslims, dogs, etc. This is what happens. That's Europe is being a very dangerous place, and it's the handwriting is on the wall. It's over with.
Rabbi Kessin, two components of Islam. How do you think they'll play out in this? They're trying to conquer. It seems like Shiite and Sunni are always trying to kill each other, as though they may be Christianity or Judaism, as though they're arch enemies.
Well, what the Baruch did in his infinite wisdom, he splits nations. We just learned about the Doha Floga, the generation of the dispersion, right? Mm-hmm. Why did he split them? You know why the Doha Floga happened? It's worthwhile.
Because they're more productive as a unity.
No. To a certain, it's on the path of thinking. Yes. Now, you know why he dispersed the nation, Doha. It's interesting. And what is the 20th century event that corresponds to this? It's very interesting to tie up 4,000 years and to see one as a reverse of the other. The reason why is, as I once said, is that originally the Jew, all nations, all mankind was given the job of tikkun, not just Jews, right? All mankind. I once said that, right?
Yeah.
And what happened was that the Russian decided to give it only to Avraham Avinu, right, and his descendants. They would do the tikkun. They would do the rectification of creation, and he took it away from the goyim. You know what I'm saying? So, but the problem was at that point in time there was only two nations. There was Avraham and his descendants, and there was only one other nation called Babylon. And in fact, the Torah says there was one nation, B'sof Echos. They had only one language. There was no such thing as nations, which is interesting. You see, there was only two nations, and there was like I say, Babylon, and the second nation was what? Was the Jews, which was about to become a huge nation, right? Okay. Now, if the Russian gives a tikkun to the Jews and takes it away from this one nation, what's going to happen? I'll tell you.
Destroy the Jews.
That one nation is going to destroy the Jews. You see. There are many reasons for anti-Semitism. Many. Jealousy and so on. But it is my contention or my belief that the essential reason for anti-Semitism is that a goy can sense that there's something different about a Jew. He can sense it. You know. And the reason why is because the neshama of a Jew, as the Ramchal says, is enormously superior to the neshama of a goy. He says, the Ramchal says that. Okay? Because the neshama of a Jew has 5 chalokim, nefesh, ruach, neshama, chay, nefidah, whereas the nefesh of a goy only has nefesh. So when a goy meets a Jew, there's something going on there. There's like an ability somehow deep down, I believe, that he senses, or his chelik neshama senses the vast gulf between him and a Jew. And that brings out hatred. You know, that's what happens. You know, when you meet a guy who's worth $1 billion, you know, you only have $5,000 in your bank account. You know what I'm saying? You're incredibly jealous. But that jealousy really evokes rage. How can he have so much money and I have $5,000? There's something grossly unfair here, you know, and that rage evokes hatred. So I believe that's why Esav Soni Yaakov. Why? What's the problem here? You know, Esav's got the Las Vegas. What do you want from the Jew? You know, Esav's doing fine. Just take a look at the European civilization. But what happens is that in the area or the dimension of ruchnius, spirituality, Esav can sense the superiority, the enormous gulf that separates them from the Jew, like Ramchal says, and from that comes Seinei Yaakov. It's what's called, it's a spiritual feeling that they get, automatic. That's why anti-Semitism can never be removed, really. As long as there's a difference in the neshama between a goy and a yid, you can. I don't care what the goy is or the vis-a-vis the Jew. There's always going to be anti-Semitism.
Unless we're not in their face.
Yeah. So therefore, that's the problem. Therefore, the only solution is do not mingle with them. You know, in Shemois, what does it say? It says, "Vatimolei ha'aretz eisam," and the land was filled with them, which means that they all of a sudden they spread out from Luxor, Thebes, which is originally Egypt, and so on, and they spread out all over Egypt, and all of a sudden they were in everybody's face. And what's the next pasuk? Vayokem melech Chodesh. See, as soon as they spread out and they want to be equal to all the goyim, there's the beginning of anti-Semitism. That's why when Yosef brought him to he put them in Eretz Goshen. You see? And Eretz Goshen was an area that was far away from Thebes, which is the present-day Luxor, which was the original Egypt, the pharaohs of Egypt and so on. But in any case, because you're in their face, they will hate you. So therefore, here was the problem. You have all these goyim, right? You have one nation here, and the other nation has now been given the tikkun process, which means that there has been an incredible alteration in their neshama. So what do you think is going to happen? One against one, the goyim will destroy, because ultimately they'll outnumber the Jews, and they'll destroy the Jews. So Boshim said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to split the nations. So instead of killing Jews, they'll kill themselves. They'll split. So, wait. It's another question.
Diversion,
Yeah. But all I'm saying is that you understand the logic. So if it's one against one, no good. And the Moshe knew that for the next 4,000 years, the Jews are going to do the tikkun. They'll never survive. So what he did is he split the nations into 70, and therefore each one has a distinct language and culture, ethnicity and so on, religion and so on, and therefore they fight themselves. You see? And they let the Jew go. As it is, they are trying to kill the Jews. Could you imagine if there's only one nation against the Jew? You see? So what the Muslim always does is he splits. He split Christianity. You know? In the 16th, 15th century, Luther, until then the popes, the Roman Catholics were terrible to the Jews, and he split it. He made Protestantism, and they war against the Roman Catholics. So now they kill each other. And then the Muslim split Muhammad, Shia, the Shiites and the Sunnis, because the Shaila is, who is the real heir of Muhammad? Is it his son, or is it son-in-law? Yeah, so for that, could you believe because of that distinction they kill each other? But for us, it's the greatest bracha, and so on. So the Muslim long ago split them, which was a gewaltige tova, you see. So the Jews can survive to do the tikkun. However, now that we're next to the Mashiach, Hashem doesn't want this anymore, because there's a pasuk in Tehillim that says what? Chapter 2. Loma rokshu amim. Why do the nations agitate? Right? Because they want to go to war. Hashem val Mashiach. So what do we see? That what the Moshe now wants to do, right, is that he wants to that the Goyim will rage against Mashiach and Klal Yisrael and God. And that's Melchamas Goy Gemogoi. But in order for that to occur, what you have to do? You have to unite them again. You know, when the nations are united, what's going to happen? They'll hate the Jew. How do you unite the nations if everybody's split? What's the institute that Moshe created? United Nations. Yes. United Nations is an undoing of the Dua Flaga. That's what it is. It's funny, everybody's around, they all, around, and, even the concept of language was bottled, because everybody's got their translations, right? They're all listening, everybody can hear what anybody's saying, because there's no language barrier anymore, because there's instant translations, you see. So therefore, the UN is really an undoing of the Mabul, of the Dua Flaga, right? Because it's no longer necessary for the nations to be split. Now the Russian wants to bring them together in unity, and we know what happens when the nations come together in unity. They hate the Jews, and 90% of the General Assembly's resolution has been against Israel, true to form. Exactly, which is amazing. And this idea just popped into their head right after World War II, World War II actually, right? There was the League of Nations that didn't go too well because the U.S. never joined, and then you had the UN. Right? When was that? 1947. I think, and that's an undoing of the Dua Flaga. But it's amazing, once you understand the initial periods of history, you can actually see 20th century, 21st century events once you have what's called a game plan. Interesting. Anyway, so this is basically what's going on. However, somebody threw a monkey wrench into the whole business. What's the monkey wrench? What's the problem here? Sutton made a deal. Fabulous. Europe is falling apart, right? America is also having a lot of Muslims. Or what's killing America is Mexicans, Hispanics. That's what's killing America, and so on. To teach America a lesson. You want Israel to accept all the Palestinians. Fine. Let's see how you like it. I will give you Mexicans to contend with. We'll see how you like it. The problem is that Mexicans are okay. I mean, they're not bad people at all. It's Mexicans. The problem with Mexicans is that basically now they have a third world mentality. If you take a third world populace and you put it into a first world populace, what's going to happen? The third world will dilute and bring down American know-how and all that. Maybe in 50 years you'll be able to raise all the Hispanics. But meanwhile, they're going to bring everybody down. That's the problem. The Palestinians, of course, the real problem. They want to kill the Jews. At least the Mexicans, they want to become citizens and do legitimate work. Like stand behind the counter, construction, all kind of good. But they don't want to kill people. Really, they can become very good citizens, but it's going to take decades to bring them up. Meanwhile, they're lowering the whole standard of America, and so on. Anyway, this is what's. So the whole world is changing, and the Arabs are all over the place. Okay. However, the problem is the Muslims, Arabs, whatever, they only have a certain amount of uniqueness that they can bring down. And what do we see? They are collapsing, aren't they? The Islamic world is collapsing in front of our face.
They're still overtaking Europe.
What?
They're still overtaking Europe.
Yeah. But the centers of Islam are collapsing. Let's take a look, right? Let's go through North Africa, right? What do you have? You have Tunisia, bad news. Libya, bad news. I mean, ever since Gaddafi left, the whole place has fallen apart. Egypt, it's also in threat. You know what I'm saying? Even though he's trying to save the place, Al-Sisi, but he's got a long way to go. And then what do you have? You have what do you call it? Lebanon, falling apart. Syria, fell apart. I mean, Syria is like it's incredible that country has been butchered. What the Russians did to that country is beyond belief. Then you have, of course, Iraq, fell apart. You know what I'm saying? Afghanistan, there's nothing there. You know what I'm saying? Every nation that has the Arabs is mamish dying. What's happening here? What it means that the Sultan, or rather, they are running out of Kedusha. Why would they be dying? And not only that, what's interesting, what?
What happened to the Iranians?
Iran, yeah. But Iran, yeah. What?
They're falling apart too?
Iranians? Sure. I mean, with the sanctions and so on, that's the incredible thing. Obama could have killed them, destroyed them all, if he would have kept those sanctions. Instead, what did he do? Pull back. I mean, this guy's just beyond belief. But anyway, but what's also interesting, you see that Yishmael is dying also, because they only have a certain amount of kedusha every day, because they do certain good things I mentioned and so on. They give tzedakah, alms for the poor. I mentioned some of the chutzim that they have. They give tzedakah and so on. They also make a oil regel to Mecca. Pilgrimage. You have to go once in a lifetime. You have to go to Mecca. That's called a pilgrimage, but it's an oil regel, and so on. So they have schusim.
The scar is that. Is that
what?
They're not civil on that.
Who?
They don't waste water.
They don't seem for them to do that. There's no mitzvah that they should have a scar.
No, but I want to tell you something. Any pursuit of religion, even if it's an avodah, and Islam is not an avodah zarah, is some kind of a schus. Because fourth, they believe in God. Even though they distort the whole thing. But the pursuit of any religion is better than the pursuit of no religion. You know what I'm saying? Because at least they makir that there's somebody, there's a higher presence. In any case, what we're seeing is the death throes of Yishmael. And what you really see the death throes, which is interesting, That's what you see, the political upheaval in the Middle East. But what you really see is something even more fascinating. Because what is the koich of Yishmael? Oil. Shemen. Oil. Oil is their koich. If they didn't have their oil wells, who would ever look at a guy in a bed sheet? Who would ever look at these guys, They have not done a thing to civilization in the last 500-600 years. And they realize that it's a bankrupt religion. It's a bankrupt country and so on. So the only koich they have, what's their claim to fame? It's oil. Which is amazing that the Bonshim gave them that, or else they could never have risen, they could never have done that. But there have been major discoveries because they discovered how to take oil out of shale. Now they do that. They do it out of gas. It's called fracking. It's called hydraulic fracturing, where they can break a rock and take out the gas, And now they discovered to do it to oil. So America is about to become the greatest exporter of oil in the world because they discovered how to take shale oil.
Didn't he shoot it down? He's trying to...
What?
Well, it's expensive. It's expensive.
Can't do it, it's all on private land.
If the price of oil would be up, which is Saudi Arabia is keeping it down, then America would just take over the oil.
But in any case, so therefore America is poised to become the greatest oil producer, and the Arabs are really worried because without oil they're finished, and so on. In fact, oil is dropping like crazy, and Russia's going crazy because most of their economy is oil-based, and certainly the Arabs. 94% of Saudi Arabia's economy is oil. You take that away, and they're finished. They go back to the desert. But why now? Because their time is ending. Their shlita, because of their ability to be yonei independently from the Shekhinah, whatever, without the Sultan, is dying. Or else this could never happen. So politically they're dying, economically they're dying. Because that's the end of it. Once the world, once the world has access to an oil base, besides Saudi Arabia or the other nations, it's over. They cannot control the economy anymore. Oil is going to collapse. As it is, remember we were paying $3.50 or something like that, and now it's down to $2.60. You know what it is? For a barrel, gallon to drop 80, 90 cents? That's a disaster for many economies. But what does that mean in Gabi Hashkofa? It means that their influence is waning.
What about the discovery of the huge oil find
in Israel?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, obviously, when they go down, Israel goes up. So Israel has discovered the Leviathan oil gas fields, and believe it or not far from Jerusalem is a major shale oil in Israel. It's unbelievable, and it'll take years to develop. But Israel will become, right now Israel is one of the greatest gas exporters. It's incredible, And therefore, if they can tap into their shale oil, they will become an exporting oil country. You believe this? Which means automatically their influence over the world will dramatically increase, just like the Arabs. That's why everybody does with the Arabs, because they want their oil and so on. We don't realize this, but the whole economy of the world is about to shift. And in 10 years, the Arabs will have, what will they have? Nothing. I'm not even talking about another major area that can destroy the Arabs. Hydrogen fuel. If the world discovers how to make energy not from oil,
cold fusion.
What?
Cold fusion.
Well, yeah, cold fusion. That would. What that would do? You know what I'm saying? Even though they're trying to tap into wind power, all this kind of stuff, it's only a matter of time until they tap into or they find another way of getting energy, and that's the end of the Arab domination. They're finished, and like I say, it's happening already. So what that means that the Arabs are losing their ability to be the masters. They are losing their kedusha, whatever they could tap into the Shekhinah and so on and so forth.
So
that's incredible news. What?
So why are they proliferating so much? Why are they multiplying so much?
What do you mean multiplying?
Saying that,
Europe.
Influence is going down, but the population is
the
going
populations are rising.
Yeah, well, okay, it's true, but the koich of the Arabs really is from what? It's from their oil. It's it's the political power that they have. The other ones, so that's the real koich, and therefore the UN, everybody regards them as critical because they can supply the world with oil. The other way is inferior because the other way will lead to what? The clash of civilizations, and that's why that's happening. Two things are happening simultaneously. One is that the Arabs politically are dying. You see. And that's their main koyach. Politics, nationhood, statehood. The other stuff that's happening is going to bring the world, which I will talk about, to the clash of civilizations. You see. And the clash of civilizations, they don't care if they destroy the Arabs. Whereas politically, if they have oil, you can't do that to the Arabs because you need their oil. You see, it's two different types of scenarios that will result. You see what I'm saying? Okay, now, so what is the Sultan going to do? Nebuch, he has to be bailed out. He's dying. And even Yishmael is collapsing under him because they only had a certain amount. He hit him in 1989, basically, whatever, and so on, And by the time you get to 2014, 15, they're collapsing. Who's got big problems now? The Sultan. He's got very big problems. Big problems. However, he is incredibly smart. What does the Sultan do when he's left with nothing? It means that the last strategy is dying. Because he doesn't have any allies anymore. So, what does the Sultan do? Got to go back where? Remember, he only has koyach of the Jews' sin. Yes? He only has koyach of the Jews' sin. That's the only way he can renew his koyach. But if the Jews are not, right? So if he's not getting it from Yishmael, and the big bluff is all over, right? So what does he do?
Erev Rav?
Who?
He's back to the Erev Rav?
He's back to the Erev Rav. What does that mean? That was the middle guy, the dissidents. Therefore, all of a sudden you find what the Sultan did was very interesting. But the Sultan really is powerless. His power comes from Chet. He's a mekatre. He's a prosecutor. So he's looking around and he found something. He found something to be mechaber Klal Yisrael. And now you'll understand a lot that's happening. Because Yishmael is dying. So there's a new strategy. He found one of the greatest chatoim of Klal Yisrael.
Internet.
No, Sinas
Chinam. Yeah, he found that. And Sinas Chinam destroyed the second base of Mikdash. It keeps, we're still in God's place, Sinas Chinam, right? He found it, or whatever, he's using it, and what happens when he uses it? He won. What does it mean he won? In Din. What is the result of his winning in Din? What is the result of him winning because of Sinas Chinam? I want a specific political event. You need to translate the hashkafa into politics, into history, or else it just remains theoretical.
ISIS?
No.
Said last week about
So-
became.
So this guy, all these guys.
No, that was part of the rise of Yishmael.
No, so the guys.
But now Yishmael's dying, and maybe that's also why the Senate
All these
won.
guys rising up in Israel, going after
That was
the from Yidden, trying to draft them into the army, and all that.
Okay.
all these
Did I tell you
persecutions.
that?
No.
Okay.
No, all these persecutions and
Studying Torah.
cutting off their money, cutting off their funds, all this stuff. Anything that can hurt them from Yid as a payment back for the Sinas Chinam.
Almost. Mida keneged mida. You guys want to hate each other? I'll show you what hatred is. So all of a sudden, up comes a guy who hates the Jews. Who's that? Lapid. All of a sudden, the whole government of Israel, right, is a war against the Haredim. Why? Because the major tikkun comes from the Haredim. They're the ones who do the mitzvahs, basically. Everybody else, the Amaratsim, the other people, they're lost. They don't have any bechira because they don't know anything about Judaism. All those assimilated and unaffiliated people, you don't realize they don't do the tikkun anymore because they don't know anything about Judaism. They're tinik shenishba. The ones who are really doing the tikkun are the religious, are the Haredim, you see. So if the Haredim hate each other, that brings down the kilko. Enormous damage. And there's a lot.
Where are you, sir?
I don't want to. There's a lot of sinah among the Haredim, especially in Eretz Yisrael. I'm not getting into and so on. So all of a sudden, there's a mida keneged mida. You guys want to hate each other, right? And you guys are doing the you guys are the major tikkun. I will show you what hatred is. And all of a sudden, Lapid. Yair Lapid, he's a nobody. I don't even know if he has an education, a high school education. How does a man who's a nobody get 19 seats? It's incredible. And this is the kitwa. Whenever you find a miracle, these are miraculous. It's the same out with Obama. How can a community organizer become president of the United States? Because he's Ishmael, and his job is to destroy the United States, which he's doing admirably. That was his job. So Hashem picked a Ishmael, a guy who was going to wipe out the United States. And look how much damage that one man has done. He has done more damage to the United States than the entire history of the U.S. It's unbelievable how much, But it's interesting that the fall of Yishmael corresponds to the rise of Congress, the Republicans, because they are now going to try to stop him. But again, it's a weakening of Obama. It's interesting that it parallels the fall of the Arab worlds. In any case, so a guy like Lapid comes up, Mida keneged mida. You guys want to hate each other? I'll show you what hates. Livni, all Sunni Das, all of them. And tragically, even the Tanyo is all part of them, because he also is an Arab, basically, and so on, you see. So what happens? Let's take a look, right? If the Sultan needs the anik of a Haredi by Chatoim, well, guess what? That's what's happening. First, all the yeshiva guys, and that's the main continuity of Judaism, really, right? They got to join the army. The army is a social instrument to destroy the Haredim, the religion of the Jew. Ben Gurion held that the army is the great equalizer. It will take everybody and make them Israelis. That's why they want guys in the army. I don't need from guys in the army, They want the army because the army will make everybody fry, basically. So that's number one, is they want to remove the yeshiva guy from the yeshiva. See, until now they try to take away money, but that's not enough. Now they want to yank the guy out of the base medrash, hoping that will destroy the guy, make him fry, not religious. He will be choyte, and the Sultan has dinner. That's number one. Number two, right? Number two, what's going on? The economics. He wants to take away money from all the yeshivas. That's why kollels are closing. Stop the growth of Torah. Because Torah is the greatest enemy of the Sultan, because it makes the guy from, and the guy does a mitzvah, and destroys the Sultan. Number three, we have to interfere with the educational system. He wants to change the curriculum, introduce new subjects, and so on. Again, that's an interference in the educational system. All of it, right? All of it is to liquidate or diminish the power of the Torah. But all of a sudden they came up with a new plan, which, besides these three, Gerus. They passed a law that any Rav can Magaya a Jew. And that's a disaster, because now that's going to split Klal Yisrael. They just passed it in the Knesset, because they want guys, people who want to become Jewish, who have to observe halacha, right? What do these guys do? They do mitzvahs. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want new Jews coming in and doing mitzvahs. So what he's going to do is fool everybody that you don't need to observe mitzvahs, and you still call them Jew, and obviously they're not Jewish, so that we don't have to worry about them. What the Sultan is doing is attacking the greatest source of his destruction, which is the Torah observant Jew. Whether it be a modern Jew, I don't care. Anybody who observes the Torah is his greatest enemy. Why now? You know, what's happening, we are seeing the end of the status quo that Israel had with the Friar for years. Because like I say, Yishmael is dying, so what's he going to do now? So he has to attack the Haredim directly. And who are the foot soldiers of the Sultan? Erev Rav.
Question: if the Erev Rav,
you see the logic of all this, how everything is happening. You know, it just one follows the other logically. So therefore, this entire attack against the Haredi population is a satanic influence to destroy Klal Yisrael's ability to do Torah mitzvahs and to and not give the Sultan his ability to take new kedusha power at all. That's why all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you have guys like Lapid. What in the world? How in the world did he come into his position? These guys have the power to destroy the Haredim. Right now, that's what's happening.
So why don't you see that?
However,
why don't you see that in the United States yet?
Who?
In the United States, why don't you see that yet?
In the U.S.?
Yeah, the attack against the Furman in the United States.
What has been interesting, you have seen some
Is that because
Bloomberg went against Mila. There are certain interesting things that, and all of a sudden they're against Shechita in Europe and so on and so forth. There are attacks against fundamental things. The U.S.
not so successful yet.
Listen. He's not going to war with the entire planet. You know, Israel is a major source of his weakening, his destruction.
Also, that all the programs that are falling apart one after the next are attacking the source of Lakewood funding.
Huh?
The programs, the government programs.
Where, in America?
Board of Ed here.
What?
He's saying here in Lakewood.
I mean, no, I'm saying,
Oh.
what I mean, that WAKE, food stamps, and all this is getting very cut off, and a majority of the young amount of funding comes from.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
It
rather
was.
to me. Very well.
Anyway.
It's just starting. Okay.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't reached here yet.
Rabbi Kessin,
Yeah.
question. If the Erev Rav think they're sitting intellectualizing where they want to move Judaism, but really they're being manipulated by the Satan who's pulling the strings in their minds,
Yeah.
how culpable are they going to be held to this? Are they truly doing this evil on their own 2 feet? Or they're like puppets on a string?
I want to tell you something, it's free will. They have a
Not
choice.
defending them, I'm just wondering the mechanism that the Satan takes a guy and says, we're going to do this, that's
The
against
Satan
Israel.
doesn't take over your Bechira. He just offers you, makes you an offer that you cannot refuse. In that sense, he just makes it very, very attractive. Exactly. That's all. In other words, he picks the right guys that if he knows that if he introduces them, wow, you guys want power? And Lapid wants power. What other Michiganer says after he gets elected that he's going to be the next prime minister? What is the guy, megalomaniac? Was he crazy? And of course he fell. They say if he got voted today, it would go from 19 down to 9 or 8 or 7 or whatever, So it's all power. It's all power and chauffeured cars. It's all these guys, all these MKs. They're all into power and the preservation of their power.
So the ones that have the bad traits.
Let me ask you, think about this. You have any idea what, I just mentioned one thing. I just read that, what is it? That Israel has the highest poverty level for kids.
Yeah.
What is that supposed to mean? Where are the MKs? Where are the Knesset people? Why do you think Israel is so expensive? There was a whole scandal a couple of years ago where a product which is manufactured in Israel costs less in Europe than it does in Israel because Israel has monopolies. And the government doesn't want to stop this. Yeah, you only have 1 or 2 companies doing something. Of course they can raise the prices. Where's the government? Where's your achrayas to people, your citizens? How do you allow monopolies to exist? And the answer is, follow the money. Because these people probably give enormous amount of money, donations or whatever. Yeah, but that's a rishus. We're talking about a whole country. You know how many, you have an idea how much evil is in this government? Because they're into power. They're into preservation of power. They're into their chauffeurs' cars. They all have chauffeurs driving them. You know? That's what these guys are. In fact, I once read that when an MK loses, when he's no more an MK, he has serious emotional problems. He doesn't know how to deal with the fact that he's no longer, you know, somebody to reckon with. I want to tell you something. I'm not saying every member of Knesset is this way, but there's an enormous amount. And they're not sick people, they are evil people. That's what they are. To sit on a country and allow monopolies to dominate the economy where a guy can't even afford. I'm not talking about the housing prices, but food at least. You know how expensive food is in Israel? There was a whole scandal, like I said, 2 or 3 years ago, where the price of, I think, cottage cheese was more in Israel than it was in Europe, even was being made in Israel, or some other product, whatever it is. What kind of richness is this? Anyway, so much for them. Look, their day will come. In any case, the main idea is that there's an incredible attack on the Haredim because of this. Because again, the Sultan is dying. Yishmael is collapsing. So he needs his Erev Rav again to go against the Haredim in Eretz Yisrael and to destroy the source of a lot of the damage that is done to the Sultan.
So the whole rising.
However, what does the Baruch Shem do? Now you'll understand something else that happened, you know. So this is what seems to be happening. Like I said, now there's the attack on Geras. So what did the Baruch Shem do? He has to try to help Klal Yisrael. What was the original fuel that allowed the Sultan to do this? Sinas Chinam. It's always the thing that kills the Jews. So what does he do? He makes 3 teenagers get kidnapped. Why them? I don't know. But the consequences of that was incredible. They unified Jews unbelievably. They see there was never a greater unification of Israel, the Jews, you know, in the world because of since that time.
One was an American.
What was that?
One was an American.
Yeah, whatever. So what that did, so therefore, why did Moshe do that? You know, because he wanted to reunite, remove the sinas chinam, to stop the Sultan, you see. That's why that happened. Why that? It happened because of this, to unify the Jews. Now, one of the things also against Israel is Hamas, the war. Why now the war? Well, several ideas, but one of the major ideas is, again, it's a product of the Kitra prosecution, but that also unified the Jews, because they felt, you know, one, that the threat is against all of them. In any case, what we see is that Baruch Shem is doing things to bring unity to the Jews against the Kitrudim of the Sultan. This is what's happening.
What's the scope of those 3 boys?
Incredible. We cannot comprehend this. You know, I mean, look, they were the instruments that the Baruch Shem used to unite the Jewish people, and therefore, I mean, obviously they never intended that. I mean, they died, and so on. You know, but the fact that it came out like that, we don't even know what this was. You know, it's all, you know. So they were instruments.
These are the schus they earn without even.
What was that?
It's a credible amount of schus they earn without even intending to.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So this is what's happening so far. You know, in many ways, I brought you up to date. Except Ebola.
And ISIS also.
Oh, right, ISIS. Oh.
That's for the downfall of the Shmuel, or?
That's
wait.
Dessert.
I need to about ISIS, Ebola, and what will happen. Wow. Okay, now let's talk about ISIS. There's a medrash. Actually, it's a Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer that says the following. It's in Perek Lamed, in some of the old editions of Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer. It's not in the new ones. It says the following. The Achros Hayomim, the end of days. I love medrashim that starts with the end of days. You because wow, I gotta read this, It says in the end of days, Osid Yishmael will conduct 3 wars of terror against the world, against Edom, Western civilization. Okay? So it mentions 2. The 3rd one is against the great city of Rome. There will be an act of terror against the great city of Rome. I think I once mentioned this. Who is Rome? There's no Rome today. Rome is Edom. Rome is America. Is the 20th century version of America. Who's the great city of Rome? New York. What was the act of terror? World Trade Center, which has enormous significance. What was the real significance? Follow me. World War II, Japan. They bombed Pearl Harbor. Are they crazy?
Yes.
Why they bombed Pearl Harbor? I'll tell you. There was a guy, Yamamoto. Yamamoto is the chief naval officer or the admiral of the Japanese Navy, and they proposed to bomb in Pearl Harbor. So he said at that meeting, whatever, you guys are out of your mind. And he came out, he said a famous statement, and he's right. He said, if you do what you were thinking of doing, which is to bomb Pearl Harbor, which is the American base in Hawaii, he said like this, I only fear, right, that we will awaken a sleeping giant, America, and fill it with a terrible resolve to get us. So what are you doing? America's out of the war. They're not in the war yet. All you're going to do is succeed, is bring America into the war. Well, everybody knows the awesome power of America, even in 1941. They knew, and he said, don't do it. They did it anyway. What happened? They declared war. The whole nation was marshaled. It's amazing what happened. All the industries stopped, and they began producing weapons and everything. Was America entered the war. They declared in 1941, Pearl Harbor. Why did Russians do that? Why put that idiotic ideas in the Japanese mind? We know the answer. Because Germany was killing the Jews. The Russians dragged America into the war against their will in order to stop Germany. Because ultimately America is what saved the world. The Russians took away the Bechira of Japan to do an absolute idiotic thing, because they were not prepared to fight America, and America of course won. What's very interesting, you see the Hashgacha protests. There were many tremendous Hashgacha, but the Battle of Midway, which was the turning point of the naval battle of the Pacific between Japan and America, so America had their armada steaming toward Japan, and Japan had their armada steaming toward wherever, Japan or wherever they were coming, And the question is, who's going to see first? Who's going to have the element of surprise? So the Japs, I'll never forget this, it was incredible. The Japs sent out a scout plane, flying, and they had in different directions because they didn't know, and the guy spotted the American armada, the Japs. That's it. That's the end of the element of surprise. So the pilot, gets on his radio to warn, hey, I did it. I mean, that's like the biggest prize of the war, I see exactly where they are, aim your guns, and let's finish it off. The guy's radio didn't work.
It's made in Japan.
In those days.
It was made in China. Huh?
Yeah. You believe this? The most important decision of the war, that's going to, and therefore, of course, what happened is he couldn't radio back, and it was hundreds of miles out, so even if he flew back, it wouldn't stop. The Americans had the upper advantage, and Battle of Midway, they won, and that reversed the whole naval battle of the Pacific. Why did Russian do that? Because he wanted America to enter the war to save the Jews. Got that? World Trade Center. Think about that. This guy's an absolute idiot, Osama bin Laden. You can't take on America. It's the same thing. I only fear that you will awaken a sleeping giant and destroy you. So why did he do it? Al-Qaeda can't take on America. You know, they could do, you know, so go make your acts of terror somewhere else. You can't do it to America. Again, because he filled in with the terrible result. And America destroyed Al-Qaeda. They're almost wiped out. You know what I'm saying? Why? Because he made it, he put that stupid idea in Osama bin Laden's head, right, to alert America what Yishmael is. And from that time, America is alerted to what an Arab is, what a Muslim is. That's what put him on what's called put him on alert. So Hashgacha Pratis, where now America realizes, like this, you know, America, you know, yeah, forget about it. Let him bomb Europe, who cares? But once America was dragged into the ultimate clash between Edom and Yishmael, this was the beginning. And the Medrash says, against the great city of Rome, which is New York, the World Trade Center, that's what it's referring to, obviously. But the reason for that is the preparation for the great clash of civilization. Now, then the Medrash says, continues, right? It says, Umisham, and from there, Yitzmach ben David. Mashiach ben David will sprout. Now, whenever it says Yitzmach, it doesn't mean Mashiach ben David, it refers to Mashiach ben Yosef. Es Semach David, the sprouting of David refers to Mashiach ben Yosef, because he's the first, okay? So Es Semach David, or rather Yitzmach ben David, is Mashiach ben Yosef. He will sprout from there, and it says, V'ro, a year, and he's going to watch as Yishmael takes out Edom, and as Yishmael destroys Edom, and Edom destroys Yishmael. There you are. The classic clash of civilizations. He's going to watch, which is interesting. And then it says, Umisham Yovel Eretz Yisrael. He will come to Eretz Yisrael. What are we doing? We're watching. That means there's going to be a clash of civilizations, right? And we'll see what the whole point of that is, right? And this will occur, but you have to alert America on one side that this is what Yishmael is capable of doing. And that's why you had the World Trade Center and so on. But wait a minute. Okay, America's ready for it. Yeah, but Arabs can't war with America. Come on. And Muslims can't war with America. Why? Because they're political states. A state can't war with America. They're part of the UN. They can threaten Israel, but they can't threaten America. You see. So, while the Yishmael is dying, and the Sultan is now desperate, out of nowhere comes what? The desperation. The only kind of Yishmael that can war with America is what? Is a religious movement, not a state. You cannot have a political state, a political entity, war with the United States. Because they can't. The Iran has that problem. Because it's part of the UN. But ISIS is not. ISIS is the classic Islam that's trying to destroy, and they want to destroy everybody, including America. So ISIS rises, it's interesting that ISIS is the chelik of Yishmael that rises out of the ashes of Yishmael as they're collapsing, because they declare themselves a caliphate, and a caliphate is a religious movement, jihad movement, to destroy the world, or rather to take over the world. They, I believe, are the fulfillment of that medrash. And that's why they seem to be having tremendous hatzlacha. So imagine, they walk into Mosul, Iraq, and the whole 300,000 guys run away, of the Iraqi army. Are they crazy? So they went to the bank, they took away $500 million. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And they're making, I heard they make $3 million a day. From oil, from kidnapping, robbing banks and all that. And these guys are really Yishmael,
Is that why they have a koyach to essentially do a mini Holocaust on Christians?
Yeah. Well, the That's the beginning of Yishmael against Edom. You know, they are utterly ruthless. You know, and and people lose their heads over ISIS, literally.
It's the first time there's such a movement, no? Like ISIS.
There
was never such a thing.
No, not that type of
against
ruthlessness.
Edom.
Yeah. These guys, so it's fascinating to watch ISIS doing their thing. But it's funny that ISIS comes out of the ashes of the fall of Yishmael. So therefore, therefore ISIS is challenging America, you see. And my belief is that nevuah of Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer refers to ISIS.
They made it hit
incredible.
America?
What?
They made it hit America?
No, there's the beginning. No, it's the rise. No, they're not here yet. It's the rise.
But they're having
now. However, even ISIS needs backing. What's interesting is Iran. There's a tremendous medrash. It's a Yalkut, famous Yalkut, and it's also it's also in Yoel, the end of Yoel, which is very interesting. Where in the end of Yoel it says that Edom will war with Yishmael, and Yishmael will war with Edom in Yoel. And the Malbim says that these two, that he calls it, the Arabs and the West will fight each other. That's what he said. That's in Mamish Yoel Daled at the end, But the Medrash says like this: B'shavua sheben David bo, b'shana, or was it Shav? I think it's Shavua. B'shavua sheben David bo, in the week that Ben David comes. That doesn't mean the week, but it means, let's say, Shmita, 7 year, right? It says that Osad Poras, Persia, Iran, to Lizgara, to incite or to war with Arabia. That's what it says. And then it says that Arabia is going to run to Edom to get some type of support, which is interesting. And then it says that Poras is going to incite the entire world and begin to destroy the world. Now the question is, excuse me, Persia? No way. Yes, that's the nuclear bomb. What that medrash is saying is that Persia will they will get a nuclear weapon, you see, and they will create tremendous fear in the world, right, whether it be Europe and so on, because they have that weapon. And what's the whole point, really? The point is that they need to back the Arab world to fight America, ISIS. That's what's going to happen.
This past week, someone very significant in Iran is trying to unite the whole Muslim world, even their enemies, by saying ISIS was created by Israel and America to divide us, and we should not be divided. That speech was just made this week.
Yeah, so they want to unify.
They're reaching out to you, and the Saudis don't like ISIS either, so I don't know how that plays. And then the financial...
Well, the interesting thing about it is that, you think about this, right? It says that the Iranians, what will they do, right? It's not just ISIS. Because the Iranians are Shiites. All the Sunnis are quaking in their boots. Because the Shiites will kill the Sunnis. Saudi Arabia is Sunni. Jordan is Palestinian, but, and so on. So you have the Poras is going to war against Kuwait, which they did, right? And what did Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, what they do? They ran to, it's what the Medrash says. Then they run to America, right? And then they really conduct the war, except they only went a certain place in terms of, what's his name, Saddam Hussein. Now, however, it seems, and of course, in order to make sure that Iraq will do the job, right? Iran, right? Obama says, what's the problem here? He's already admitted, he's already given into the fact that Iran will be a nuclear nation. He's already given to that. Why? Because that's the Medrash. Because they will develop a bomb. And as a result of that, they will empower the Islamic nations to try to war with America. But I believe what probably will happen is they are going to war against Israel. Why? Because what the Russian seems to want to do is to evict the Arabs from Eretz Yisrael. So what he's going to do is have the Arabs unite and join, like some of them joined Hamas. it will be a major clash between the Arabs and Israel. And in that clash, but meanwhile the Arabs are also clashing with America. So nobody's going to stop Israel from kicking out all the Arabs. I believe that what the Martians was doing is a shocking thing. You know, imagine when the World Trade Center collapsed. It was shocking. Remember those things collapsing? You couldn't believe it. It looked like some kind of Hollywood production of, you know, of a science fiction, you know. That what's going to happen is that the Arabs in some way will attack the United States, ISIS. And it's not that they will attack. They have guys coming back to America, to England. Guys who trained under them. And these guys are crazy. They're jihad mad. You know? All you need is one guy to put a dirty bomb in Wall Street. And you can shut down the entire Wall Street, which will shut down America. It's all you need. It is so easy. I'm not even talking about Ebola yet. You know? It is so easy to shut down America. Because the mistake people make, you don't have to bomb America. You know how you shut down America? You don't bomb them. You know how you do it?
Take out the finance.
What's the weapon?
Should we?
What?
Should we?
No, the weapon to shut down America isn't a military option. It's fear. That's how you shut it down. All of a sudden, some guy puts, well, we'll talk about Ebola in a minute, right? You know, and all of a sudden nobody goes out anymore. You know, you put a dirty bomb on Wall Street. Who's going to go to work the next day? You know, and New York will lose $100 million a day, and therefore, when Wall Street goes, you're looking at the whole industry collapsing. You see, those days where you had to have an army to do it, a military option, that's gone. It's fear that can shut down America and the world. You see. So therefore, all ISIS needs is a guy to come back to America, and there are hundreds of these Americans. There are hundreds of British guys. The biggest nation sending guys to ISIS is France. There are 1,000 guys from France going to join ISIS. Any one of which can come back, and remember, ISIS makes $3 million a day. Not a big deal to buy a weapon. Any one of these guys can come back, put a small nuclear device, right, in a nation's capital. Look what happened in Canada. You know, everybody went crazy for one day because of that. They're going to try to kill everybody, right? And so on. But put a nuclear weapon, a small dirty bomb or whatever, and today it's all miniaturization and so on, you know. And who's going to go to work the next day? Nobody. See, that's the collapse of a nation. And so on. Fear. And so on. And it's happening. Everybody knows it's going to happen. It's only a matter of time until, hey, they took 2 Americans and they cut their heads off. What is that? You know, it's like they say, that's ISIS putting their finger in the eye of America. You know? I mean, you know, what more of a statement do you need than, you know?
Your opinion.
I mean, that's what ISIS holds. They're not afraid of America. They will do whatever it takes to destroy the United States. They hold the United States to be the great Satan. And they'll do whatever it takes ultimately to get Israel, you see. And therefore, they don't have the military do anything. That's the mistake everybody makes. Interesting. All they have to do is one of their guys return in with an American passport or an English passport, British passport, plant whatever. It could be anthrax. I mean, you have to be into this bio stuff, you know, and the nuclear stuff and so on. It's very easy to take out a nation these days. Like I say, because you don't need a military operation. You just have to put fear into the hearts of the entire nation, and nobody's going to go to
It's
war.
like 10 guys with just regular bombs, take them on the subway.
Yeah.
All conversion on New York City at one time.
Yeah, sure.
Well, you've
That's it, you know.
Put 10 guys
and
with
guess what?
Ebola walking around Manhattan.
Well, we'll talk about Ebola in a minute. But imagine 5 guys coming in 5 different the N train, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to go. Nobody goes to work anymore. Nobody uses subway. You don't use a subway. It's over with. You know, that's the weapon that these guys are going to use. It's not a military option.
Your opinion.
Who's going
Now,
to win between Iran and Iran?
What? Believe me, they got those ideas. That what I'm trying to do is destroy the naivete that people think, well, they don't have any weapons, I can't do it. What weapons? I don't need any weapons.
Your opinion on these people with the beheadings and taking their own daughters to be stoned, and in Vietnam with hacking people's bodies apart and torture things, and the Shah of Iran. This generation of Americans, Edom, even though their ancestors were inquisitors and crusaders, they don't seem to have the stomach or tolerance for this kind of thing.
That's right. Who doesn't have the tolerance?
Americans, soldiers, policemen, as tough as they are, this drives them nuts. It's the fear factor. Why do you think that is?
They're so scared of their lives these days.
I want to tell you something. Why is it the mafia in the 20s, right? They come into your business and they would say, we want to protect your business. It's called extortion, right? And they would say, we're not stealing from you. We're an insurance company.
Protection agency.
Yeah, in other words, we don't protect your business, right? Of course, we protect them from what? From us destroying your business, So, excuse me. So, you need to give us a donation. So it's a donation. Premiums. You can give us premiums, $5,000 every week or something like that, It was a racket, Why is that? And well, people did it. Because you knew if you didn't do it, you're dead. You, your family, your wife, your kids. You're dealing with ruthless people. Most people are not ruthless. This is the problem. We're civilized people. It's very hard for a person, to go and take revenge. We are so weakened from this type. In the olden days, you couldn't do this stuff. They kill you 1, 2, 3. You couldn't. Today we are so weakened. We can't even carry around guns, which is terrible. The Constitution provides guns for private citizens. Of course, how dare they take away? So therefore, every guy goes into your house knows you don't have a gun. I think the statistics, if you go to a state that has guns, Texas, there's no crime. Sure. You put your gun on, you kill the guy. That's the end of it, But they know nobody has guns. What America has done is they have wimped the citizens. That we're wimpish. We don't have this stuff to protect ourselves. You realize how dangerous that is? And the Constitution says we can all bear arms. They all bear. Everybody then had arms.
The idea of bearing arms is to protect yourself against the government. Not just against the criminals, but against the government. We take that.
That's an important barrier.
But a guy needs to protect his family. That's elementary. So how dare they come along and say we can't have arms? Yeah, they come up with, you can have a shotgun in your house, but you can't be. It can't be concealed. This is unheard of stuff. This is really unheard of. So what they've done is made a nation of wimps. So we're not used to that stuff. That's why the mafia is so powerful. You can't fight the mafia. They will stoop to doing stuff that you could never do. What are you going to do? Kill them? You can't even aim straight. You're going to aim for the mafia guy and wind up killing the dog in the street. That's how bad off we are. This condition didn't exist in the Middle Ages and so on, And that's the same thing, That's the fear. So we're not used to. We can't fight this way. I couldn't care less. What's to stop a guy from ISIS from dropping some cyanide into one of the reservoirs? Nothing. You think those reservoirs are protected? Of course not.
Brooklyn Bridges.
You ever walk around this reservoir here? Nobody here. I can take a nice gallon of cyanide. In 5 seconds you're dead. And pour it into that, and guess what's going to happen? It's nisim v'neflois that this doesn't happen. You realize what that is? Mass murder is the easiest thing to do today. That's the threat of ISIS. It's not military. And they know it. You just give one of these guys, this kind of stuff, and you are going to see a pachad that you have never seen in your life. Nobody's going to come out of their house. You know what I'm saying? The gun sales are going to go through the roof. And it's more than that. That can create a civil war against the president. Sure, against Congress. How dare you? Are you crazy? That's what's... You can easily have a civil war in America.
We already have Texas starting to...
What?
We already have a sect of Texas starting to have that mindset.
We should protest. Yeah, what's happening here? Therefore, and ISIS is sworn. ISIS is sworn to destroy the infidels, Europe, the U.S., Israel. In fact, they're sworn to destroy the Sunnis. These guys are, these Shiites. Yeah, they kill Shiites like nothing. I remember I heard on the radio, some guy walked into a town, it's like 100 different bodies without their heads. The ISIS. These guys make the mafia look like kindergarten. You know what I'm saying? Even mafia doesn't do this. With mafia, at least it's business.
No, right.
Yeah, it's nothing personal. It's never personal, God forbid, right? It's not personal. It's business. I just killed you and your family. Business. You're taking away my cash. These guys, it's all personal.
Is ISIS Sunni or Shiite? So what is
ISIS is Sunni.
Sunni.
Yeah.
So what is
they kill Shiites. You should know that's why Al-Qaeda disowned them. You believe this? They're more ruthless than Al-Qaeda. Because Al-Qaeda doesn't kill Sunnis. So what are you doing? Shiites. They're still Muslims. You can't wantonly go and kill them. You declare war. They are declaring war on Islam.
Oh, that's why Iran doesn't like them.
Yeah, because they're Shiites, of course. Although they're not saying anything yet. But everybody's afraid of ISIS. Because ISIS will kill Shiites. No problem.
Shiites are their sons or their son-in-laws?
Oh, you mean... You know what's funny? I always, what's funny? I always knew that, if Mechutanim argue, every once in a while you find a fight between a brother and a brother-in-law, between in-laws and in-laws, but this? It's a war against Mechutanim. That's what it is.
Yeah. So where does the Ebola fall?
Oh, anyway, so therefore we are living in incredibly dangerous times. But I believe that the clash of civilizations, one of the major ideas is two concepts. One is that each one will take each other out or severely limit each other, right? That's number one. That's what the Bolshevik does. He creates splits, so each one will weaken the other. But I believe also is that under the umbrella of a clash of civilizations, Israel will evict all the Arabs. And then Eretz Yisrael will have the Jews will have the complete Eretz Yisrael. And I think that's going to shake up the world.
Also, wouldn't that give them? Wouldn't that be?
Now, I want to tell you Ebola, and then I want to tell you what's going to happen. What?
Wouldn't that allow Israel to expand if?
That's Messianic. That's only time in Mashiach.
There's not
right now you got to get rid of it. Right now you need a Tahara. And then we'll worry about a Kedusha to bring more land. Right now you got to get rid of these guys.
Maybe that's where they're
now,
starting.
Ebola. Let's talk about Ebola. Our favorite virus.
Hey, before you do that,
the U.S.
What point does Yishmael do tshuva?
Who?
Yishmael. In the end they do tshuva.
After a certain point in time, let me ask something, Today's parsha was Vayera. Moshe destroyed Sodom, 5 cities. There's a kasha. Why didn't he warn them? He didn't warn them. You find a bunch of warns people. Like Nineveh, even Egypt was warned. People are warned, you need to walk in and destroy a country, city. And Sodom was a major city in those days. And so there are 5 cities. Why didn't he warn them?
He knew that was a Malvin that says.
What?
He knew they wouldn't do tshuva.
How do you know that? Not how did he know that? Where do you see that in the Torah?
The Malvin says that because when the Malacha went down there, it was to see if they were doing it as Taiva or they were doing it as Shita. That was their law. That you can't.
Where do you
his
see?
Ideology is that you can't.
No. Where do you see in the Torah? Forget what the Baruch knew. Of course he knew. But where do you see in the Torah why there was no warning? And I bring this for a reason, not the Darshan of Vayera. You know where? Malachim. The whole town, the whole city comes over to Lot and says, hey, who are those guys? We like them. Brotherly love, right? So Avram Avinu says, excuse me, and Lloyd says, what are you two guys, Lloyd was incredible. He was willing to give his daughters, unbelievable, Mafki's daughters, because that's what they wanted. Obviously, was to a homosexual act with these two guys. Apparently, when Malachim take the guise of humans, they look handsome. I mean, that's obvious, Anyway, so all of a sudden, and it says that they get, the town people, hey, he said, get out of the way. We're coming in. We want these guys, For obviously, acts of homosexuality, and so on, So all of a sudden, these malachim, look at these people and magic. They blind the whole place. They're all blind. You see? Now, what does it say next? That they wearied themselves to find the door. They didn't care they were blind. They were still trying to get these guys, which is interesting. Imagine you walking down the street, and you see two guys fighting, and one guy, he says, hey, what are you doing? You don't like what I'm doing? Okay. He goes like that, and the guy's blind, right? What would you do? You wouldn't pick a fight with this guy. This guy's supernatural. You pick a fight with this guy, you're out of your mind. Or you have an incredible death wish. It's one or the other, right? Imagine these two people blind, it was like an ophthalmic crisis. Everybody needed an eye doctor. At the same time, it was incredible. So these guys should have said, we got to get out of here. If these guys can blind us, they can kill us. What's the big deal? They're doing us a favor by blinding, So they should have run away. But it doesn't say that. It says they were trying to break the door down. So what do you see? That their desire to do the Avera was greater than the fear of death. If that's the case, what are you going to warn them? You're going to kill them? They couldn't care less. That's why there's no warning. From the Torah itself, these people had the desire to do the Avera was greater than the fear of death. So there's no Hasra possible. Because a Hasra means if you don't do this, I'll kill you. They're not worried about death. You see?
Is that an original?
That's an original.
Wow.
It's a mamash thing. It's often like that, Why do I say this? The Arabs, right? They interviewed an Arab. It's famous. They said, how do you explain the fact that 4,000 missiles came and, nothing's happening? It's impossible statistically. So the guy said, here's what the guy said, and he was a Choshev guy in Hamas. He said, well, the God of the Jews is protecting them.
He moves the missiles.
The missiles.
Their God is moving missiles in the air, and they had testimonies of what happened.
So what the guy should have said, what are you talking about, the God of the Jews? There is only one God, that's Allah. You don't believe in many gods. That means you're telling me that Allah, who's your God, is protecting the Jews against you. What does that tell you? That's like incredible. That means God is a traitor. He's committing treason. Instead of protecting them, he's protecting the Jews. Even the Jews are infidels. How's this possible? Right? Elamai, right? That's what the guy should have said. Excuse me, you don't make any sense. And so he should have told that to the Hamas guy, And what would the Hamas guy answer? He should have said to himself, this makes no sense. If the Jews are wrong and they're infidels, how's it possible that our Allah is protecting them? Did the guy listen to it? No. He actually made a statement which is absurd based on their theology, right? So how are you going to convince them? They're not going to. They'll never change. If they don't even change with this absurdity, it's a stir minei ubei. It's an absolute contradiction. How can Allah be on the side of the Jews? When we all know Allah's on the side of the Arabs.
Who's the head? Haniya? Who's the head of Hamas?
What?
Haniya? Who's the head of Hamas? Haniya is the name?
Yeah, one is.
He's sending his family to Israel for medical care 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah.
And they do it. They go in and help him out and everything.
It's something
and his
about.
3 sisters are Israeli citizens.
It's something about Jews.
They plant microphones inside the bodies.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. They probably plant the mic so it goes back. It's true, It's funny that they're not worried about that, They never do it. You heard the real joke, that some guy with this real story. A guy is talking to an Arab woman on a plane. Says, "How do you explain the fact There are thousands of missiles and nothing is happening. I mean, it's impossible statistically. So she said, well, the Jews have two secret weapons. They have, one of them is they have the Iron Dome, and they have another thing called, it's a secret weapon. So she said, I'm not sure what it is, but it's something called the Kanievsky. Believe this? That's why they'll never change. A man should say that about Allah, It's chayzik. So he should have said, maybe there's something wrong with our whole theology, and so on. No, they'll never do that. That's why it'll never change. Fine. That's ISIS. I think I've covered what's going to happen, what the real weapon is.
What is the world doing with ISIS?
What Obama's, what's he doing? He has no, there's no, what do you call that?
Retaliation?
No, what they're bombing them. He doesn't want to, the only way you can kill these guys is ground troops.
Yeah.
You don't send ground troops as a anyway, because that's what Obama is. He's the worst president in U.S. history. It's just beyond belief what this man is. Anyway, Ebola. What's happening? This is Ebola. It's incredible. You have any idea how dangerous this is? Because Ebola can destroy the United States. Not by sickness, by fear. All you need is 5 cases of Ebola riding the subways. And nobody's going to ride the subways. In fact, they had what's his name? I think the governor, Cuomo, I think not Bloomberg, he's had to ride the trains. Had to go to the restaurant. That the guy that was Spectre.
He had dinner with one of the guys. Not to have it, though.
Because fear will destroy the United States. You don't need Ebola to do it. What is Ebola all about? As far as I'm concerned, I will tell you, and I am very worried. Why? Because Ebola is hovering over the United States. And the Bosham is stopping it. He's merachim. But you have to understand why. Why is Ebola hovering? The fact that, of course it's Obama. I mean, it's incredible what Obama. Bring guys back here to cure them. I mean, this guy's insane. Here's the problem. I told you. In 2005, I told you, New Orleans. I told you why New Orleans happened. Right? Because on Wednesday there was a holiday by New Orleans called Southern Decadence Day. Was Southern, even the name sounds pretty bad, what happened was on that day, every kind of zima, homosexuality, same-sex marriage, you name it, can go on in the streets. It's permitted. And the government, although they don't legalize it, they permit it. They look aside. That means the whole city is involved in zima, right? So what did Hashem do? On Monday, the storm hit, the hurricane hit.
It's like a stone.
What?
It's just not a stone.
Yeah. So on Monday, the storm hit, right? On Tuesday, it went over the levees, right? And destroyed the city. Why? Because Wednesday will be Shreklach. Now, what is a hurricane? It's a mini marble. It's a mini marble. Mamash. And why did the marble come by Noach? Same business. Okay. What bothered me is I realized that the Bosham is not going to stop because it's a city. He will destroy an entire city. He did. He destroyed New Orleans. Fine. That tells you the Bosham will not tolerate same-sex marriages, whatever, because that will destroy civilization. There's no continuity. There's no reproduction. You're not having kids. You know what I'm saying? So there's no reproduction. That's the end of civilization. The Bosham will not have that. And he'll destroy... No, he destroyed the whole world because of this. And he destroyed New Orleans. Okay. And that is worrisome. Therefore, what's happened in the last 2 weeks is Shreklach. I think 20 states have legalized same-sex marriages. Okay. And they brought, I forgot which state, brought up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, we don't want to touch it. They refused to rule on the matter. So therefore, they let stand a lower court ruling that permitted it. And they say that 20 states now that the Supreme Court doesn't want to get involved, is now going to go to 30 states. That means the majority of the United States will legalize same-sex marriages.
The Mishnah.
What?
The Mishnah. Placing civil scharim.
The what? Okay, yeah. Any case, and I've warned, I've said this a year ago, 2 years ago, that if America keeps doing this, because remember, America is the face of the world. Where America goes, the whole world follows. That's really what happens. I said something terrible is going to happen.
That's why.
As the state, and that's why Sandy happened.
Sandy hit New
Yeah,
York the
they hit New York and New Jersey, because both of them have legalized same-sex marriages, and it's it's a mini marble, same thing. Okay, but I thought maybe the Banshee was going to hit to an earthquake or something like that, but I realized, there's two things going on now. Both of them are because of the legalization of same-sex marriages. One, you notice there's a plague going on. It's called the enterovirus respiratory. It's sending thousands of kids to the hospital. Why? Mida keneged mida. What does same-sex marriages do? You don't want kids? Fine, I'll get rid of them for you. The Bush will not allow civilization to destroy the continuity, which is reproduction. So you don't want kids because same-sex marriage is not going to produce kids, right? Okay, and that's it. So it's a xer against kids. But it's not full because it's not a death to kids. A couple of kids have died, but it's sending kids all over the place to the hospital. It's a zero. But of course the United States doesn't get it. And now this. So what is Ebola? Let's take a look at Ebola. Ebola is an interesting virus. It's incredible what a virus does. It's so little. It's like I think 100 nanometers. That's the whole business of virus. A virus invades the cell and takes over the machinery of the cell and forces the machinery to reproduce little viruses. So therefore, that's why the kids are getting sick. Because again, it's mida keneged mida. You don't want kids? Fine, I'll take away these kids. It's mamash mida keneged mida. But Ebola is interesting. Ebola is a hemorrhagic disease. What's a hemorrhagic disease? It destroys the circulatory system. So you bleed internally and externally. You bleed to death. Because your veins and arteries are not working. They burst or whatever, It's called a hemorrhagic. And so on, You ask yourself, of all the systems in the human body, what ensures the continuity of the body? Circulation. Because the circulation unites everything, right? It brings nutrients to the cells, takes away the waste, and so on. In other words, the continuity of the goof is the circulatory system. So you want to interfere with the continuity of civilization, I will destroy the continuity of your goof. Same concept. But what we see is what the Moshe is doing, and it's amazing. Ebola is hovering over the United States. All you need is another crazy doctor who, and so, to do what he did. All you need is 5 cases in New York, and New York will go crazy. That's all you need. And it's a miracle there aren't 5 cases. Because you know what they do now? They self-quarantine people. People don't listen to this. And how do they do that? They call them up. They call them up twice a day and ask them to take their temperature. But I heard now that you can be contagious and not have temperature. So there's no rye anyway. It's Nisim that what?
Flu-like symptoms also mask that. So when it's flu season, they can quarantine. Who knows how?
Yeah, that's another bad. Is it the flu or not? So guys, it's not the flu. It's the flu, so it's not Ebola. Meanwhile, the guy's walking around with his symptoms, and he can give the and they say that they say it's not airborne, which is Nisim in the floors, but so it is airborne. Because if you get sneezed on, if some guy has a bone and he sneezes in the air, guess what? His droplets are within 3 feet of you. You imagine if somebody has Ebola and sneezes in the subway system during rush hour? God, hey, come on,
You never know.
Who knows? Nobody knows. It's all you need. A guy with Ebola goes into rush hour, right, and sneezes. And all the droplets, it's unbelievable. And that's the end of it. All you need, like I say, 5, 10 guys, that's the end of New York City. And Obama, beyond belief, that he doesn't want to shut down these 3 countries, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. It's crazy. And now that I heard he wants to give $1 billion to bring guys from there into the United States to try to cure them. It's insane. I'll tell you one thing, I believe, if Ebola develops and the Roshim is Merachem, you could see the epidemic is hovering. It's mamish like, and which is incredible, And it's almost like he's waiting to see, like the Gzera. It's like Rosh Hashanah, then Yom Kippur is the signature. It hasn't been signed. Because that will produce a Zamin panic that the United States has never seen. It would be like the Black Plague in 1350, where it destroyed over half of Europe. And the Black Plague was a punishment for the what? For the Crusades. And the Spanish flu of 1917, which I think killed 80 million people, that was a punishment for World War I, how many Jewish communities they started. I mean, Russia has his ways of doing that, and so on. And now all of a sudden he's brought up Ebola to destroy the world. He can easily. Today he can't stop it. The air travel and so on, It's horrendous to look at that fear can destroy the United States. And I want to tell you something, if that ever happened, guess who they're going to blame?
The Jews.
No. Obama. He brought it in. And guess what? Civil war. There was war against him and the Congress. They'll kill them. You know what it is for a guy to permit a disease that has a death rate of 70% with no cure?
He's a maniac.
Yeah, but what can happen is there's going to be voices like that. How do you bring a disease? And if it happens, you'll have a civil war.
Good news. There was somebody on the radio that said there was a girl that survived it. So now she has antibodies.
Yeah.
So once there's an antibody, they're trying to make a vaccine so everybody will be like by January or something. Yeah. I don't know what he was saying.
But they say it takes months to make that. 10 months. The WHO, World Health Organization, says there are 10,000 people in these 3 countries that have Ebola. Yes? 5,000 are dead. Because, 70%, right?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. They say that if it's not stopped in these 3 countries, by January, you'll have 1.5 million people with Ebola.
They said Sierra Leone shut down already. The country shut down.
That's exactly what happens to a country. The country it's over. The country's over. The Sierra Leone is finished. It's like leprosy. Would anybody go into a leper colony? No. But nobody's going to walk into Sierra Leone. Could you imagine a country, nobody's going to go there, there's no business there, everybody can't walk out. It's the end of the country.
Why is it?
They can come to America.
What?
They can come to America.
This is the Ziegler place.
So I'm telling you, it's because of the same-sex marriages.
That's what they have there in Sierra, in those 3 countries?
I don't know. I once asked somebody said that they had a civil war which was ruthless. And besides that, why did AIDS start from Africa? Because there's an incredible amount of promiscuity, Zimo in Africa. Because they're not, there's a tremendous amount of this stuff in Africa. There's whatever the cheshbonis are, we don't know.
That answers the problem why nobody assassinated Obama yet. They were just watching him, they should be able to do all this.
Oh yeah, he's protected. Yeah, of course he's protected. But I'm just saying, we are sitting on a powder keg. We don't realize how dangerous this man is to the health of the United States. He is one of the most dangerous men alive because of his policies. He can actually permit Ebola. All you need, I'm telling you, it's incredible. What was it? 5 people getting Ebola on the subway system? You tell me who's going to ride the subway. Now how are you going to get to work? There's no work. And they have no cure. What are we looking here? No cure, 70% are dead. The hospitals can't handle this. Could you imagine 5,000 people going to Bellevue? There are 5,000 beds.
4 beds.
What?
There are 4 beds.
There are 4 beds. I mean, what are we talking about here? An unmitigated medical disaster. And this Messianic is inviting Ebola in. Is he crazy? Anyway.
So with all this...
Anyway, that's Ebola. And I believe it's because of that. Because Mishkav Zocha.
With all this stressful bad news, it explains the growth and the rising trend towards the legalization of marijuana, so people can relax a little bit. Not take it too seriously. No, because I'm sitting here thinking, why bother? You know, what's the point? It's just so bleak. Not that I do, I'm just saying. Because that's a new trend also.
How much?
What brand? I don't know. You know,
Tomorrow we end come out over here?
I tell you one thing, somebody's going to listen to the shir is going to say, hey, all those guys are on marijuana.
Or you wanted to say where this is all going?
Yeah, I want to tell you now. You heard the, like, you know, what's happening, all the
wondering how we
possibilities.
stay sane. It's just getting weird.
There's a Zoya, I think I once said this. It's interesting. Things are accelerating beyond our imagination. Every day there's another crisis. It's just incredible. And they just pop out of nowhere, you know? ISIS is only 6 months old. Ebola is what, 5 weeks old? It's just like the next day you don't know what's happening, you know? And so on, you know? And it's just incredible. There's a Zoya, it's a Raya Mehemna, I think it's Parshas Pekudei. It says the following. It says that Tchis HaMeis, most people think that, well, after Mashiach ben David comes, you have Tchis HaMeis, resurrection of the dead. Right? Fine. Okay, so the dead get up. Okay, so they think, well, whoever's going to get up is going to get up in one shot. No. The Zoya says, it's machloikis, but the Zoya says that Tchis HaMeis takes 210 years. In other words, after Mashiach, when David comes, that's the Messianic era. It still takes 210 years for Tchis HaMesim to happen. Because different people will get up at different times, depending on how Megushindik you are, whatever it is, and so on, okay. Which is incredible. So if the world ends in the year 6000, and you subtract 210 years, yes, what does that leave you? It's 5,790. What year are we in now?
75.
How many years is that left?
15
years of Ben David. Which means now, so between then and now, what has to happen?
Yosef and Yosef.
Wait, no. One, the clash of civilizations, right? Well, what has to happen is the rise of Yishmael, the clash of civilizations, which is a major thing, the entry of Ben Yosef, okay? Then you have the, right? And before that has to, well, the rise of Yishmael, the clash of civilization, the eviction of all the Arabs from Eretz Israel, yes? Then the entry of Mashiach ben Yosef, okay? Beis HaMikdash is built, all the Kibbutz Goliaths, and just look at that, you know? All the Jews come back, the Or Mashiach, the Messianic light, comes down, yes? Okay, then you have the war of Gog and Magog, because that's a Messianic war, and then comes Mashiach ben David. That's 9 things. Each one is a world shaker. Yes? And this is going to happen according to Zoya in 15 years. Talk about acceleration.
Why do these 210 years have to be before 6,000 years? Before this, I mean, why can't it be after?
After the 6,000.
No, the world ends at 6,000. Because the world was created in 6 days.
So Messianic era is before?
What?
Messianic era is before 6,000 is over?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. This world ends, the physical world ends in 6,000, which is 2240. However, the Mashiach comes before, and his reign will end in 6,000. That means that's the end of the Messianic era. And from the year 6,000 on, which is 2240, begins a different dimension of reality. It's it's not Olam Haba yet, but it's there and sort of and so on, you know. So Zikach happens to the Bria and then whatever and so on. But the main idea is that we're looking at 15 years, according to the Zoya, and the truth is we see that the Zoya is correct, really, because look what's happening here. It's unbelievable. The acceleration. It's like since 1989, which is Tafshin Nun, right? Which is the year 5,750, right? Which is Chatzos, if you remember the creation calendar, right? Remember that? 6,000 years, 6 days, right? Each day is 1,000 years. Friday, which is equivalent to the year 5,000, which is 1240, is Erev Shabbos, and Mashiach comes, and the Hachana, you have to prepare and so on. So 5,750 is Chatzos, 12 noon on Friday, and then we are now 12:37, which is Sheish V'chetzi, which is 6 hours and a half, and that's called Ben Arbayim, and it says V'hoyu le'es or, V'hoyu le'es erev ye'or, and there will be at the time of evening Ben Arbayim ye'or will be the light, and we are now, according to the creation calendar, right? We are creation clock. We are now Beinu Arbayim, and it says in the Torah, it says, in the Navi, V'hoyu le'es erev, and it will be at the time of evening, which is Beinu Arbayim ye'or. There will be light. So we are now not 12:30. I think we have to calculate every 41 years. Every 41 years and 8 months is equivalent to an hour on that 1,000-year clock. So that's why we see this incredible proliferation of events. It's just beyond belief. And since 1990, think about what happened. When you think about the events that happened, we're talking about the fall of the Berlin Wall, communism, the World Trade Center bombed in 1993, the World Trade Center, Israel facing the Arabs. You have Clinton, you have Arafat, you have Obama, you have the internet. You know what I'm saying? You have the unbelievable rise of science and so on. It's just incredible. I mean, who remembers all the incredible thing that happened? What's been going on since 1989, which is Chatzos and so on. So we are accelerating. Just take a look in any given year, and we are rapidly heading. And I believe the Arabs are reaching the end point. They're reaching a point of exasperation. They don't know what to do because they can't get Israel off. They can't destroy Israel. They can't get it off. That's why Abbas is going crazy. Should he go to the courts, international court? Should he bring it up in front of the UN? He doesn't know what himself to do, and so on. Meanwhile, Hamas, and meanwhile, your whole Hezbollah in Lebanon is much worse than Hamas. The Iron Dome cannot protect 5,000 missiles. These guys, their missiles were ridiculous. So the Iron Dome can do it. But if you throw 5,000 well-aimed missiles, Iron Dome can't possibly hold that. A war with Hezbollah is 1,000 times worse than a war with Hamas, and they know it, Israel, and so on. So if there has to be a war, and everybody thinks that there's going to be a heat up in Lebanon and so on, the next war with the Arabs isn't a war that you can possibly believe. It is a war to the death. That means Israel has to go in and destroy Lebanon. What it didn't do with Hamas, which is another lunacy, that you allow Hamas to exist, because then you have to fight on 3 fronts. The next war with the Arabs is a war to the death. And I'm not even talking about Iran. Imagine if Israel bombs Iran, with all the centrifuges, Iran will call for a jihad, global, against Israel. We can't even fathom what all this means. And we're looking at this right up ahead. So that's the bad news. The good news, let me end with the good news. The good news. The good news is this. Why is Mashiach called Chevle Mashiach? The birth pangs of Mashiach. Because it's the same thing as a woman who's about to give birth. Imagine. There's an embryo, or whatever, right? And it's in that, it's there for 9 months, and it's gewaldig. It's like the Hilton, It's food, it's warm, it's protected against all the outside elements, and the kid doesn't have to pay rent. It's like incredible, right?
Gets to the Torah all day.
What?
Gets to the Torah all day.
Gets to the Torah all day as yeshiva, as a Rosh Yeshiva coming in, personal Rosh Yeshiva, teaching him, right? It's a gewaldig, right? And all of a sudden, 9 months are up, and what happens? The body turns the kid around,
Dramatic.
and I can't. And all of a sudden, the kid's head is being crushed, right? And the whole body's being crushed. So the kid says to himself, "It's curtains. It's over," And the kid has no idea what's happening to it, right? That's called the crush. It's called the big crush, right? And why is this happening? Because as soon as the kid is out, it sees a whole different world. It's a world that the kid inside can never imagine. An entire world, you see, So the kid thought it's dying. And meanwhile, it sees this unbelievable new world and so on, Same thing. We are now, if you really have to look at an anatomical language, we are entering the big crush. That's really where the infant is head down and it's pushing. And as it's pushing, we are getting crushed. And more crazy things are happening. All of it is to ultimately take out the child, the Klal Yisrael, into a tkufa. You have no idea what Mashiach will do. The Messianic era is something that is beyond belief. The Messianic era. Forget about Olam Haba. You cannot understand what, and I'll give you one statement, the Medrash says in Koheles, at the end of Medrash Rabbah, it says, the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, I think I once said this, right? I say it once. Mm-hmm. The Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu is huge, right? You walk into a farm store, it said, the Medrash says that the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu is hevel compared to the Torah of the Mashiach. And remember, the Messianic era is an era of Olam Hazeh. What do you mean? Well, how could that be? Hevel is luft. It's not even a substance. The Torah of the Mashiach, and we're talking about what? Something that happened in 15, 20 years. The amount of enlightenment is beyond belief as the waters covers the sea. You see. And that Torah, so the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, that, Svarim stores that have 10,000 volumes, all of that is hevel compared to the oil of the Mashiach. So could you imagine what awaits Klal Yisrael?
So the restoration of the Torah that Moshe put down in the first place?
Yes. That would be the Luchas Rishonos.
Yeah.
So that's the good news. That all of this really is just to come into a different dimension. So clearly the Rebbe Hashem is going to protect Klal Yisrael. Even though there are different things happening, he's going to protect Klal Yisrael. If not, then there's nobody around to receive the Mashiach. Who's the Mashiach going to come to? There's nobody around. So there's no question that Klal Yisrael will survive and flourish. And the era of Mashiach is something that we cannot even imagine. So that's the good news. That all of it will be absolutely incredible. Okay.
This latest